Day 1334 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 1,130,000 military personnel losses, representing additional 1,000 in the past day. Then as for hardware, 1 tank, 3 APVs, a whopping 45 artillery, and 2 oil refinery strikes at minimum. And so headed to the map, but to start off with a different target, some 1,400 kilometers or 850 miles from Ukraine, where an overnight long-range UAV strike ignited a facility at a gas processing plant at the outskirts of Orenburg city, hitting one of the country's largest gas condensate hubs deep in the interior. Locals reported an explosion in the industrial zone after a drone alert was issued across the region, with Russian channels posting early footage of flames and debris. The Gazprom plant processes natural gas, stable gas condensate, propane, butane fractions, and elemental sulfur, and includes the Orenburg helium plant. Regional authorities acknowledged an incident but did not release operational details. Live energy data shows the complex was built for a design capacity of about 45 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year, which is a volume that places Orenburg among Russia's top 3 gas processing assets by capacity. Kyiv maintained its standard position of not publicly commenting on cross-border strikes, while Russia maintained its standard position of not blaming Ukraine. What a wondrous world we live in. Now, Orenburg is a critical upstream hub in Russia's gas liquids systems. As such, any disruption tightens already constrained helium availability, for instance, with this site already being struck back on the 11th of August. Overall, and by now, it is becoming increasingly evident that Ukraine striking at such distances has become just about the new normal for this war. Next up, and just mere miles away, and a day earlier, as Ukrainian drones struck the Orsk Refinery in Orenburg, confirming another hit on the country's oil processing network within the same deep interior. At an annual capacity of 6.6 million tons of crude, this volume places it in Russia's mid-tier output range, alongside sites like Ryazan, Ilsky, Efipsky, Novoshatinsk, and Syzran. All names you've likely heard before, as they have been forced to weather the UAV storm. So again, on this latest account, the strike fits a pattern of long-range Ukrainian drone operations targeting refineries east of the Volga in recent months, reaching beyond the limits of earlier strikes concentrated around Samara and Saratov. Then to head further west on the map, almost halfway back to Ukraine, as more AFU drones struck a high-voltage power node in Russia's Ulanovsk Oblast yesterday, hitting the 500 kilovolt Veshkaima electrical substation and forcing it offline yesterday. In this case, the distance traveled by Ukraine's own brand of fixed-wing mechanical birds of freedom at 750 kilometers, or about 460 miles, happens to mark one of the deepest confirmed strikes against Russia's electrified energy grid infrastructure since the start of the war. Russian grid operator data showed the site de-energized, with loss of transmission capacity through the Middle Volga system, which is an important link moving electricity between the Urals and central Russia. Disruptions here forces load rerouting across the Volga Ring, increasing strain on parallel corridors and reducing redundancy in the regional grid, and something that we're likely to hear a lot more of in the coming winter months. Then also to come out of yesterday, with more strikes to be seen on the Novokubishevsk oil refinery in Russia's Samara region, igniting a large fire inside one of the process areas of the Rosneft-operated complex. The blaze was visible from Samara city, roughly 20 kilometers to the north, confirmed from regional footage verified against skyline features, which is often how these metrics are assessed. This site, operating at an annual capacity of 9 million tons per year, makes for a mid to large tier site for a facility that's involved in primary distillation, catalytic reforming, hydrocracking, and gas fractionation units, common to Soviet legacy refining design, originally built in the 50s, this one. As of this weekend, the site has now been struck once a month for the past 3 months, which always puts into question if it can even hit the intended capacity through throughput. Now, strikes of this magnitude go so far as to temporarily remove more than 2% of Russia's total refining throughput, with inbound UAVs intent on moving that from temporary to permanent. The refinery roulette continues. Next up on the map, and briefly to mention, we're coming out of late last week, could you believe it, as another Russian Su-30 went down over Crimea. And once again, Russian air defenses pulled the trigger. The twin-engine jet lifted from Tikhoretsk on night duty during a Ukrainian drone wave, but never returned, with intercepted audio capturing the crew reporting engine fires before ejecting near Tarkhankut. Russian channels later confirmed the obvious friendly fire amid erratic and nervous air defense. In February of last year, Putin boasted of Russia's exceptional IFF, that is, Identification Friend or Foe systems. But the only thing reliably identified since is Russia's ability to shoot down its own aircraft. And with this event that marks the fourth Su-30, the modified SM variant, lost over the Black Sea this year alone, taking another $50 million jet loss. Then also to be found from this area, a fuel depot in Vardisk has been burning for a second day after a Ukrainian strike hit the site yesterday, with satellite heat detections showing continued combustion of stored product. As of now, diesel shortages in particular have expanded across Crimea in the past day, with stations in Jankoy and Simferopol and Sevastopol reporting dry pumps, with monitoring data indicating irregular fuel deliveries from mainland Russia following strikes on storage and transfer points in recent weeks. Crimea has no major refining capacity or direct access channels and depends on imported fuel reserves, leaving it vulnerable to sustained interdiction. So to look at the larger picture now, fuel shortages have been recorded in 84% of Russian regions, with this map being far more red than the grey that it used to be, signaling nationwide strain across retail fuel supply. Moscow continues to do what it can to protect core urban and military demand, but shortages are spreading along internal supply routes. The supply crunch in many parts of Crimea, as it comes to diesel, is particularly noteworthy too, because it's always Russia's east, its far east, and occupied regions that see these types of patterns unfold first. Not a great sign of things to come. Now to the main map, starting out in Kupiansk, with Russian infantry units conducting assaults in the northern and western parts of the city's central districts, near the main crossroads. Ukrainian FPV kamikaze drones maintain control over the airspace, which has stymied Russia's ability to bring in armored vehicles or establish a stable foothold. Instead, for Russia, it's a case of motorcycles and quad bikes, not to mention on foot, as part of their means of continuous flow of infantry determined to infiltrate the urban areas and fortify themselves in various residential buildings. Then to look further down the map, in occupied Donetsk, a precise Ukrainian missile strike obliterated a Russian deployment site near the Zazyadko mine. The attack, just outside of Gladkivka, sent flames and smoke billowing from the area as part of operations in disrupting the enemy deployment site. Then to the frontline edges of Donetsk, with 223 clashes reported on the front lines over the past day, and where fighting around Pokrovsk intensified as Russian forces pushed deeper into the western districts and probed toward the city rail line. Geolocated footage confirms Russian assault groups operating inside Leontovichi and Troyanda, expanding the grey zone and attempting to bypass Ukrainian strongpoints with small infiltration teams. Ukraine's Kortitsia command said Russia massed manpower and equipment for the continuous rotational attacks, aiming to prevent Ukrainian units from stabilizing a clear defensive line, while Ukrainian officer Bunyatov, call sign Osman, said Ukrainian forces were adapting with tighter drone coordination and aggressive counter-ambush tactics to impose attrition inside the urban grind. The front is fragmented, with mixed control at the block level. Ultimately, winter is looming and Russia is betting on freezing Pokrovsk out. Then briefly around the map, we saw the case of gunners of the 44th Artillery Brigade eliminating Russian artillery, including including 3 Mr. B howitzers, towed howitzers, 2 D-30s, and 1 Hyacinth B. Then also for miscellaneous activity, a Ukrainian ambush drone hit a Russian vehicle where the vehicle occupants spotted the FPV whilst driving, jumped out of the car, but failed in attempts to shoot it down. Transport destroyed. Now to the news, because following the end-of-week Trump-Putin call, which was followed by a Trump and Zelensky meeting, Putin pressed for full Donetsk control as the price of ending the war while dangling partial rollbacks in Zaporizhia and Kherson. Officials familiar with the October 16 call said the two presidents also agreed to meet in Budapest, that's Orban territory, but the substance did not shift. Moscow's ask is territorial surrender, and Kyiv calls it unacceptable. Trump has not endorsed the construct, and European officials describe it as a non-starter without hard security guarantees and a path to final settlement. Following all of that, Zelensky met Trump in Washington and framed the talks as long and productive, but said Trump neither approved nor ruled out long-range strike weapons, like that of the much-spoken-of Tomahawk cruise missile deliveries. But as for the Kremlin's demands on Ukrainian Map concessions, Donetsk is the backbone of Ukraine's fortress belt. Trench lines, mined approaches, urban knots, rail spurs feeding the front, which means that surrendering Donetsk would force Ukraine to abandon its strongest, most central, and longest held defensive line since 2022, and more correctly put, since 2014. So to simply hand it over to Russia to freeze the war would likely not reset hostilities. Instead, it would move Russia onto easier staging grounds with which to perform future offensives. Now, at the current pace, if maintained, it will take Russia 3 to 5 years to capture all of Donetsk. So to hand over sovereign lands to an untrustworthy adversary with no security guarantees is not much of an option. But most perplexing here is the shifting stance of the Kremlin, with Putin suggesting to cede parts of Kherson and Zaporizhia, likely parts he doesn't already hold, and yet such a suggestion would imply Russia is abruptly prepared to relinquish territory it has repeatedly claimed as its own, and even written into its constitution. That reframes annexation as a bargaining chip, treating war-torn regions only as movable pieces on a map for Moscow, completely devoid of compassion. It also widens the credibility gap. If the Kremlin's map can shift on a whim, it doesn't say much about the man negotiating the arrangements. Then to head to a quick funny to round off the video, all 5 seconds worth of funny. In the case of a Ukrainian dog that discovers an ambush Russian fiber optic FPV, with the pooch responding in the ancient art of battlefield tactics known as liquidation, as part of this short-range precision stream. I can't help myself. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks once again for all of the support, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!